everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm here with another crochet tutorial for you today. I'm on the roll with these crochet tutorials and this one's a little bit different. It's a bit of a slightly bigger project. So I'm going to be showing you how to create a baby blanket today. This is one that I have posted on my Instagram and have shown you all before. It's the jasmine stitch blanket. It's a nice thick blanket, so perfect for the winter time and the upcoming colder months. So this one's going to be filmed in two parts today. The first part is going to be the main part of the blanket, and then I'm going to give you all obviously some time to finish off that main part of the blanket, and then we're going to do the border in the second part of this video, which will be next week as well. So today for this tutorial you're going to need two different colours of chunky yarn. This is to get the stripe effect. I have this pale yellow chunky and this nice pale grey, and this is Stylecraft Special, obviously in the weight chunky, and you're going to need 3 balls of each colour, so in total 6 balls of chunky yarn. You can do more than 2 colours, you can do 1 colour if you'd like. I'm just doing 2 colours today to keep it simple and to show you how to change between the colours. Anyway, I have a 6mm crochet hook and a pair of scissors, and you'll need a darning needle to sew in your ends as well. If you're not familiar with the jasmine stitch, I will leave a link in the description box down below. I will be going through it, but obviously if you need a reminder and you need to go through it nice and slowly to get yourself familiar with it, that video will be helpful for you. So without further ado, we shall begin with our baby blanket. Okay then everybody, so for me I'm going to be starting with my grey colour, and that's going to be the first colour I start with. So to begin our blanket, we're not actually going to be doing a foundation chain of kind of yarns over. We're going to be starting with some puff stitches, and that's just how we start our jasmine stitch. So you're going to make a slip knot, so cross over your yarn, insert your fingers, grab the yarn behind and pull through, and that should be your slip knot. Insert your hook and gently tighten like so. So there is my slip knot, and to begin I'm just going to chain 1. So that's our kind of foundation security chain. Now to create our first puff stitch, we're going to first elongate our stitch, so gently pull up on that stitch like so. We're going to yarn over and insert our hook into that chain 1 that we've just created. Yarn over and pull up a loop, again elongating that stitch slightly. There are lots of elongations to stitches. We don't keep them tight with the jasmine stitch, we just keep them nice and loose. And we're going to repeat that. So yarn over, insert your hook down, yarn over and pull up a loop. There is our 5 loops on our hook. We're going to grab on to this section of the yarn with our thumb and our middle finger, and we're just going to hold that nice and tightly. Then to complete our stitch, we're going to yarn over and we're going to pull through all 5 of those loops on our hook, again keeping your thumb and finger close, pinching that yarn. And then where there is a gap where our pinched yarn is, we're going to insert our hook, we're going to yarn over and pull through, and we're going to create a double crochet by yarning over and pulling through those stitches. And there we have our first puff stitch. Now for our baby blanket, we're going to be creating 40 of these puff stitches. Don't worry, I'll show you a couple more and then leave you to go. So that's going to be our width of our blanket, 40 of these puff stitches. So now we have our double crochet stitch, which kind of counts just like our chain 1 at the very beginning. So now we can work our second one. Gently pull up your loop again, yarn over, insert your hook into this double crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then repeat that. So yarn over, insert your hook into that double crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop. You have 5 loops on your hook. Make sure you pinch that yarn nice and tightly, yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops. Insert your hook into that pinched section of your work, yarn over and pull through. So you have 2 loops and yarn over and pull through 2. Again, if I'm going a little bit quickly for you, go and check out my previous jasmine stitch video. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along with this one, but if you're struggling a little bit, just go and check that one out. Once more, elongate your stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop nice and high, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop nice and high, pinch that yarn over and pull through all 5 of those loops, insert your hook into that pinch stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. There we've worked 3 of those puff stitches. You need to work 40 of those for the length of our chain. Make sure with this stitch that you keep your tension equal throughout. It can be a little bit of a funny stitch to mess about with. Once you've got the first few rows, it will be fine with your tension, but just make sure that the first 3 rows your tension is equal throughout. So pause the video here, work your kind of foundation chain of puff stitches, 40 of these, and I will meet you back when you finish. Okay then, so I've just finished my 40 puff stitches for my foundation chain, and now we're ready to begin kind of row number 1 of the jasmine stitch. So for the jasmine stitch, we kind of work in 3 sections. We work into the stitch we're working in, and then we work into the next 2 stitches to the side. And that's how we create the little flowers petals. So what you're going to do is kind of work just as you were working to begin your puff stitch. So elongate your stitch, yarn over, insert into that double crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop, and repeat that into that same stitch. But we're not going to close our puff stitch yet. We're going to work into the next 2 stitches. So you just work into the next 2 stitches in the exact same way, keeping these 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, insert your hook into what was a double crochet, now kind of looks like a gap. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and repeat that, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. That's going to be kind of your second petal to your flower, and then once more into the next gap along, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So they should have 4 stitches, 4 stitches, 8 stitches, about 13 stitches on your hook, and this is going to create your petals for your first jasmine stitch kind of puff stitch. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky and fiddly. You're going to pinch onto your yarn just like you did with your puff stitches, and you're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops on your hook. So sometimes it's better to do this quickly, sometimes it's better to go each stitch at a time. When you're first getting used to it, you do have to repeat your jasmine stitches quite a few times to get through them, but don't worry, it's normal. So I have my loop here where I've pinched onto it. I'm going to insert my hook into that loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and complete that stitch off. And there you have your first jasmine stitch. So for the next jasmine stitch of the round, you're going to work into this stitch here that you've just created. You're going to work into the stitch directly below, and you're going to work into the next stitch. Elongate your stitch, yarn over, insert your hook into that double crochet you just created, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Then you're going to work into this one directly below that you've just already worked into, working your 2 yarn overs, and then into the stitch after that one. So it can get nice and full on your hook, just making sure you keep a hold of them all. Pinch your yarn, yarn over and pull through all of the stitches on your hook. Insert your hook into that nice gap there and work a double crochet to finish off. And there you've worked kind of 2 jasmine stitches. You can see the petal beginning to form. Show you once more. You're going to work into this stitch above here. elongate your stitch, working 2 almost treble crochets into the stitch below and into the next stitch along. Nice full hook, pinch your yarn, pull through all of those loops and work a double crochet. Again, be careful of your tension in this row. It can get a little bit lopsided, but just keep going. So you're going to continue this all the way along your row for row number 1, and then I'll meet you back for row number 2. Okay then, so I've just come to the end of row number 1, and this is how yours should be looking. You should start to see kind of the jasmine stitch building up here. I'm on to my last set of 3, and this can be a little bit tricky to see, so that's why I'm just going to talk you through this last one. So again, elongating your stitch and working into the stitch you've just created, that's like normal, and then you're going to work into the stitch directly below, which is quite easy to see, and then your last stitch is going to be worked into that chain 1 from the very beginning. So it's a little bit harder to see, but once you work into that gap it should be made clear. So that's where you're going to work into, and then you're just going to finish off your jasmine stitch by pulling through, insert your hook and work a double crochet. So there you have row number 1 of your blanket, and now we're going to begin row number 2. You're going to continue with this same colour unless you do want to change colour, but for me I work 2 rows and then change colour. It just gives a nicer effect to the stitch, and also you're able to see the colours a lot better. Okay then, so what you're going to do is you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now you're going to start every row from now on with a puff stitch, and this is just how we begin the rows of a jasmine stitch. You have to start with 1 single puff stitch. So all you're going to do is elongate your stitch, yarn over, you're going to work into this gap as usual, and you're just going to work 1 single puff stitch. So once you've done 2 yarn overs, you can just pinch your yarn and work that puff stitch. You don't need to work 3, just 1 single one to begin your round. And now you can begin with your normal 3 puff stitches. So elongate, and I'm going through this quite quickly, just because I don't want this video to be too long, and if you do know how to do the jasmine stitch previous to this video, then I just want to be able to show you how to work the blanket instead of the stitch in itself. And there we have our first stitch. You can see that with just the 2 rows, the jasmine kind of flower is appearing a lot more, and that's why 2 rows is quite nice for this blanket. So all you're going to do is continue working this again all the way along in the same exact way. It's a bit repetitive now, continuing with the same colour and continuing along the row. So I'm going to say pause the video here, and I will meet you back for row number 3, which is slightly different because we have obviously our different colour. Okay then, so again I'm almost at the end of row number 2, and I'm just about to finish off. So I'm going to finish off by working 1 last jasmine stitch. I kind of group all these 3 together as 1 jasmine stitch. And then the last one is going into this stitch here, so it's kind of on the side, not directly on the row, but on the side, which you should be able to see. Once you've done a few rows, you'll know exactly where you're working into. And then you can yarn over and pull through all of those loops and finish off your row. So that's row number 2, and now we are ready to change colour and continue working. Okay then, so the next colour I have is this really gorgeous pale yellow, again in the weight chunky, exact same weight. One of the really big positive of this blanket is that you don't have to chop off the ends and change colours, which is really positive for me because I hate sewing in ends. It's really tedious and not very fun at all, but for this you can keep your yarn attached and then continue working with a different colour until you reach the end of your ball, obviously. Because obviously we're doing 2 rows of each colour, you can go there and back, and then at this side it will be the same end where you can change colour, and I'll show you how to do that. So we are going to keep the yarn attached now, and all you're going to do is work your chain 1 with your yellow. So just loop your yellow over the end and chain 1, and then you can pull on that grey just to secure it down, and then you can turn your yarn. Again, because we work a puff stitch at the very beginning of the round, it secures the yellow down, which means that we can work with it throughout the row. I've just moved my grey yarn onto the other side so it's not fiddly as I work through the round, and now we can get ready to begin. So I'm going to hook my yellow yarn underneath just so that that's secured slightly more down as we work along the row. Bring your yarn up and you're just going to start working a puff stitch to start round number 2. Just one, as we always begin with just one when we start our row. And now we can begin working our jasmine stitch in this yellow. So bring up and start working your jasmine stitch just as normal. Again, just as a recap, I'm catching my yellow underneath just so that it's secured nicely down along the row, and also so that I don't have to sew in those fiddly ends at the end. Working my jasmine stitch, and there we have my first stitch of the yellow. It transitions really nicely on either side as well, which is again a positive of this stitch. So I'm going to continue working that for 2 rows. So every time you are changing colour, it's for 2 rows only, and then you can change back to the colour. So work this all along the row and all along back again, and then I will meet you back when you've finished that. Okay then, so I've just finished row number 2 of the yellow round, and now I'm just going to show you one more thing, and then we will be able to finish this video off, and then you can make the rest of your blanket yourself. So we've just finished with the yellow, and you can see we've got the yellow and the grey on this side. Now what we're going to do, as I've said, is that you don't have to chop off the ends. If you do want to and you find that easier, you can, but for me I just like to do it this way so I don't have so many ends to sew in, and also these kind of sides get hidden by the border anyway, which is important to remember with this. So all you're going to do is you're going to bring the grey yarn up, and we're going to yarn over and chain 1. Now a few things to be careful with is obviously you have quite a big stretch of grey, but as I've just said, it's going to get hidden by the border, so don't worry about that. And also you don't want to do it too tight. If you pull on this grey really tight, your blanket will end up being cinched up and close together like so. You want to keep the tension nice and loose and baggy so that it is so that the blanket can lay flat and that it doesn't close up together. So you've just chained 1, and now you can turn your work over just like we did with the yellow. Again, I'm just going to move my yellow yarn to the other side of my work, and there we can get started. So again, you're going to get started with a single puff stitch and then continue working the rows. Okay then, so now you've got 2 kind of blocks of colour. So I'm going to leave you to finish off your blanket now, but I'm just going to tell you how many rows that you need to do. So in total you're going to need to do 15 blocks of colour. So each kind of block of colour is one of these. So I would count that this is a block of colour, this grey, and this is a block of colour, this yellow. You're going to need 15 of those. So each one of the blocks of colour is actually 2 rows. So in total you're going to need 30 rows on your baby blanket. So you've already got 4 rows from your kind of rounds that we've worked together, and you just need to continue working this until you have 30 rows. If you do want a slightly longer baby blanket, which might be useful for you, you may need to have another ball of yarn just to increase the size of that baby blanket. But if you're happy with just the simple pattern, then you can use 15 blocks of colour, 30 rows, and for that you'll only need about 6 balls of yarn. So pause the video here. I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to continue working this over the next few days or so, and you can do that as well and finish your baby blanket. And then next week I will pop back and show you how to finish off and complete the border, and then you should have a completed jasmine stitch baby blanket. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video today. I hope you found it helpful and are able to create some beautiful baby blankets. Give me a like if you did enjoy this video. Comment down below any questions you might have. I'm happy to answer them all. I know I went through this a little bit quickly, so obviously if you do have any questions, be sure to leave them down below. Also subscribe to my channel so you never miss a video, especially next week, so you can finish off your wonderful creations. Also, if you get the chance, follow me on Instagram. I'll leave a link in the description box down below as well, and I'll see you all very soon with another video. Bye!